Welcome to Season 2 of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. Join hosts Nicola and Gina as they tackle workplace toxicity head-on. Real-life stories, well-being, and standing against toxicity await you. Let's break up with toxic workplaces and create a revolution of positivity together.
As a disclaimer, Nicola and Gina's opinions are solely their own and don't represent professional advice. It's just their perspective, so form your own conclusions. Heads up, this podcast may contain adult content and explicit language. So let's dive in and break up with toxic workplaces.
Good morning, Bryan. How are you?
Hello, I am well. How are you?
Wonderful. What?
Good.
Oh,
Whoa.
I can't remember. Where were you calling? You were calling us from somewhere cool.
DC.
Not really. Orlando. That's not that cool.
Orlando, that's right. Oh no,
Yeah,
we just
right.
remember you
Yeah.
about DC. But just kidding, because you're really Orlando.
Nice.
All right, so I'm taking my daughter to Disney in like a month, and I've never been there before.
Ugh.
What should I do? Jump off a
Not
bridge?
hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's not go. How old's your daughter?
She'll be 3.
Oh, she'll enjoy it. Okay. So you're aware, Magic Kingdom now allows alcohol. So they didn't used to sell alcohol, so that's good. You can carry some wine around
I'll
with
ask
you.
Lucia, my 3-year-old, what kind of wine she likes. Does she like?
You know,
Sauvignon?
I'm on board with that Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
I mean, you're not, but I'm on board with Magic
Well,
Kingdom.
even if I wanted to drink, I can't because I'm on bikini prep. But anyway, so that's good. Okay, but like, what should I be aware of? Should I be aware of? First of all, is it safe to even go? Just like me and my daughter.
Yeah, of course it is. Don't be dumb.
Shut
Yeah.
up! You haven't even
Yeah.
been there.
I went to the other Disney. It's the same thing.
All right. Anyway, just
Oh,
curious.
can I? My
Yeah.
top tip as an adult, though, write your
Mhm.
telephone number in Sharpie down her arm.
Why?
Because if she gets lost on the day and she doesn't know your telephone number and someone finds her, your telephone number is on her arm.
Oh, I thought you said to write it on mine. I'm like, I don't want every
On
weird
on her arm.
Okay, because I was like, ew, I don't want weird creeps calling me. I'll just make
Please,
sure
yes,
that I
you
wear a
do.
pic.
Yes,
Nope,
you
no.
do. You want a fucking creepo calling you. Please, fuck off.
No, I don't. My phone's so dry anyway, so maybe I would enjoy it. Maybe I'd be like, ooh, a little something for today.
Sorry. Anyway, Bryan, back to you. What the fuck do I know about Orlando? Fucking nothing.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think she'll have a great time. Magic Kingdom will be fun. They've changed the reservation system and stuff like that. So I would suggest looking up some YouTube videos on, what's it called? The Genie Pass, I think.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my wife and I went a few months ago with one of my wife's best friends and her 2 little girls. And my wife's friend now has like a PhD in Disney because you have to
Is that
be
a thing?
on the app. Apparently, yes, because you have to be on the app at 6:58 a.m. in order to get the reservations that you want, get in queue early for the certain rides that are popular, like at Magic Kingdom, like Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff like that.
Maybe it's going to be a no for me.
It's why I didn't like Disney. The pre-planning was more intense than the day there, and then the day there was it's fucking Disney.
I don't know. I gotta really, but so here's the one. Before we get into it, I did download the app, so there's that.
The app's really easy to use.
That's good. Yeah. You just have to be prepared that you won't get to see everything that you or your daughter want to see.
I don't give a shit. I am not a Disney person at all.
Neither was I. Neither am I.
I'm like, if I never go to Disney, I will be totally okay. My life will move on. I remember when I first moved to Florida, I went to go get my hair done, and this woman was getting, what do they call it? Before you get married, you get the trial run of the hair and the makeup.
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
the trial, right? And she was getting married at Disney, and it was Disney themed, and she had Disney baubles in her hair. And I was like, why am I here? Why do I live in this god awful state? Who is this woman?
What?
She had little Tinkerbell ornaments and shit in her hair.
Is what's happening, because he's the only one that's married here, and I'm guessing being in
Would
Orlando,
you ever
it was
marry
his
someone
wife.
who did that, Bryan? who was like, hey babe, my hair, how does my hair look? And then I was like thinking like, this is going to be your wedding pictures for all of posterity. And you're going to have like Mickey Mouse ears and like a Tinkerbell.
Yeah, that would be way too much for me. I mean, I've been to Disney a few times. Most of the times I'm there, I am hammered, doing like drinking around the world or something. Yeah. Especially since my wife and I don't have kids. Like there's no, I mean, some of the stuff there is fun, but like, yeah, we just want to go and drink and people watch.
I am rethinking this whole thing. Anyway,
she's a little bit older. Like,
I might.
A 4 or a 5er, because I feel like it would be fun if they're 4 or 5. Like it was like moderately fun for Quinn, and he's 10.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, so that's our Disney chat. So, and my PTSD from Disney hair trial. Awful.
Yeah, I guess I'll leave you with this. The first time I went, when I was still living in the Midwest, my parents brought my brother and I down for a trip to Disney, and I was, I think, 12 and my brother was like 6. Mm-hmm. Those I think were great ages. I remember it. My brother claims he has no recollection of ever being at Disney, which kind of pisses my parents off because they spent so much money on it. But I do remember us both having a good time. Like those were good ages for us. So he didn't get to ride some of the rides, but
yeah. I don't know, because like I live in this area where everybody has more money than God, and I don't. And they're like, oh, we're going to Disney for the weekend. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go have a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, I'm sorry. Do you know how much Disney was in like New Zealand dollars?
Oh yeah. No, I know. You told me
for
it was
one
ridiculous.
day. For one stupid day.
It was like $2,000 or something, like $2,000 US dollars. It was ridiculous. Yeah.
That is insane. That is just absurd. Obscene. That is capitalism at its worst. That is
miserable.
Okay, so
anyway, now that we're off track.
Despite that, I think Disney may not be happening for Lucia this year, because I also don't know if I'm in the right mind space to be dealing with all that shit. Why don't we have Bryan introduce himself? Besides being a PhD in Disney, what else are you a PhD in?
Definitely not a PhD in Disney. That is for sure. I'm there to tag along and have a drink or 7. My focus in real life is twofold on legal writing. As a lawyer, that was a natural transition to writing for law firms and writing for other publications like Forbes and LegalZoom. And then the other side of my day-to-day work is HR consulting, which is some of the fun that we're here to discuss today. And that is the HR consulting, especially over the last like 3 years, actually maybe to the day, the last 3 years, has been a roller coaster whirlwind of the ridiculous and the stuff that I thought I might never see, or never even thought that would be something
like unfathomable stuff happening, right?
Totally just not even in the realm of reality that I would have conceived of.
So can you tell us sort of being an HR consultant, I'm assuming you're kind of cutting off like pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, because the past 3 years was either we were in the pandemic or we're post. So what would normal like things that would come across your desk be as an HR consultant pre-pandemic that were semi-normal? Like what would you mostly be consulting on?
Generally boring stuff, or what most people would consider boring. Operational type things. So a company says we're growing to the point where we need to revise our handbook, or we need to create a handbook because we don't have one yet. We don't have policies written down, or we're about to hit 50 employees. So we need to start thinking about FMLA compliance and ACA and stuff like that. Though it very operational, sort of behind the scenes type stuff, where HR was more focused on not as being front facing, more focused on the business side of things and not so much of the human centric side of it.
Like your ducks are in a row from a legal standpoint, kind of.
Exactly. Legal and compliance is basically what it all boils down to. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's going on for the past 3 years?
The past 3 years have been some of those unfathomable things. Those are the last 3 years. I mean, there's a lot of legal and compliance stuff, new stuff that has happened over the last 3 years, specifically remote work. A lot of companies don't even know that they have employees in other states because the employees may not be reporting to the company where they're working from. And then in turn, even if the company does know that they have employees in other states, they may not know that they have to be compliant with those state laws where those employees are living, not just where the company is located, even if they have an office. So those are things that right there is probably the biggest eyebrow raise that I get, especially from new clients, where they're like, wait, we're based in Texas, but we have to comply with California law because we have an employee in San Francisco. Yes. To some degree, you have to be in compliance with California law, which means you've got to pay daily overtime, not just weekly overtime. If they're an hourly employee, you're subject to other requirements depending on your head count within California and as a company size as a whole, that are above and beyond what Texas requires. That is the biggest eyebrow raise over the last 3 years is all related to remote and hybrid work.
Wow. Okay. And so just randomly, have you seen the Amazon show, The Consultant?
I just saw a trailer for it last night, and I definitely want to watch it. It does look good.
Please watch it.
Please watch it.
Okay.
I almost feel like we need Bryan to come in for episode 3 of our review of this show.
Yeah, because it's insane. And anyway, so yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would have known, like, what state am I, so does that, with this whole state and compliance thing, does that make businesses not want to continue to be remote, or like what happens there?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it makes them not want to be remote, or they come up with ways to not hire people in certain states, which you can do. You can just post your job in Texas. We're only hiring within Texas.
Because I've seen that before, like jobs eligible for like, and then there's like a bunch of different states, but not
exactly.
all of them.
Or like even in the job posting, they'll say, "Hey, we're hiring for a remote position, but you do have to be located in Texas."
Okay, and that's not illegal.
So yeah, no, companies can absolutely do that. And that has happened. That actually started happening somewhat before the pandemic, when a couple of states like Colorado and California started implementing pay transparency laws, so that in the public job posting, you had to post a job range for the position you were hiring for. So some states decided, or some companies decided, they didn't want to do that because they don't want people to know what they're going to make, I guess. And so they would not accept applicants from those particular states.
So that they wouldn't have to put in the salary range.
Exactly.
Why are people so dodgy?
Yeah, why do companies do that? I mean, New York just got a law just passed in New York, Bryan, which you probably know of, that you have to put the salary range. If the company's based in New York, you have to put the salary range in the like classified ads or the job posting. I'm old, classified ads, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and actually, using New York as an example, recently there was a company that posted a job with a range of 90 to 900,000 to comply with that law. Obviously, that is not a reasonable range.
Wait, what was the range? $90 to $94?
90 to 900,000.
That's
ridiculous. Wait, what company was that? We'll bleep it out.
I don't know. I don't recall. I know I saw the job post. It might have been like 88 to 880. It was some like it was such a huge range, oddly specific number, but it was also a huge range. It was almost intended to be a joke, I think, or at least I hope. But it's also a way to get around the law. Yeah, it's also a way to get around the law.
And they're not wrong, right? Because they are posting a range, and nobody said you had to post an accurate range. But doesn't that open you up to like, well, they said I could earn up to like $900,000. How come I'm not earning up to $900,000?
Because it's a job ad, not a guarantee. So the guarantee
is the
such as it is going to be an employment agreement, offer letter, employment contract, something like that. Exactly. Yeah.
This reminds me of, did you see that documentary about Pepsi with the jet?
I watched the first part of that. Yes.
You
and
know
I do remember
about?
that. I do know what you're talking about.
That's part of our era, like where you would collect enough bottle caps and you could like trade it in for merchandise. And one of them was like this like crazy, I don't know, some like military grade jet. And this kid figured out a way to do it. And Pepsi never gave them the jet.
Rude.
And he was like, and he was in like lawsuits forever. But that's what that reminds me of. He didn't win, but there was like so much more to the story. But it was actually really fascinating. I was like, this is gonna be so fucking boring. And then I was like glued and I binged the whole thing. So
another one you might like is the McDonald's one. If you haven't watched that, that's a couple of years ago, about the Monopoly pieces for McDonald's and the
I never watched that one, but everyone has told me to watch
shady
it
stuff.
It's like
it's good.
It's like such a con thing.
I need to watch that because I collected the Monopoly pieces from McDonald's.
It's really good. The mob gets
rigged?
involved. Like it's the
mafia's involved, and also it was rigged that no one could ever win, right? Wasn't that the main takeaway?
The big ones, the
main prizes, like it was, no one was ever going to win the big prizes.
What? Surely that's not going to fly in New Zealand. Surely that's not going to fly.
And family members of people who were like involved in the game would miraculously win $100,000 prize or something like that.
I started watching this, but then I think I might have had my baby, and then I stopped watching it.
Okay, I'm fully subscribed to that. Like, sign
BT
me
Dub,
up for that
congrats on your baby.
BT Dub.
I don't know if you heard that one episode we had where somebody's boss was like, she was in active labor, and the boss texted her.
Yes.
And at the end, she was like, "Congrats on having a baby, BTW."
Yes.
Oh my God, I can't even.
That's my favorite.
So Bryan, okay, so you've got pre and post pandemic. We've got like all this weird shit unfolding in the HR space. I'm curious to know, kind of getting to Gina's meat and potatoes. I'm curious to know, what are some of the wildest things that you have seen in the last 3 years?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Our podcast is powered by the seamless one-click installation and WordPress starter wizard from SiteGround. Choose from pro designs, add contact forms, online stores, portfolios, all automated, no tech stress. Say goodbye to mundane setups and hello to a stunning podcast platform. Join us on Let's Break Up Toxic Workplace Stories and let SiteGround handle the digital stage for you. Launch your podcast website effortlessly, because breaking up with toxicity starts here.
So there are, I've got some notes here on my other screen that just to remind me of the big ones. There are 4 big ones, I think, or maybe 3 big ones and one related smaller one that we can definitely discuss, that I don't think I would have expected 3 or 4 years ago. So we can discuss those and dive into those and
let's hear
talk
it.
about
What's
them.
number
Ready? Hold on.
Detail.
I'm putting myself up.
What's number one?
So number one is a company, they're a true small business, less than 50 employees, that was owned, family owned business, and they made an announcement to the company in the beginning of January 2021 that they had a family emergency and they were going to be unavailable for 3 days to go and take care of this family issue.
Okay.
It turns out that their family emergency was the insurrection that they flew to DC for to participate in I don't know to what extent, but that they were present and near or at the Capitol for the day's events.
I don't
I guess I'll just leave it there and see if you have any questions.
Family going, if there's a family emergency, is the whole family going? Like, what's happened?
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot that I don't know about the exact details of this particular instance. I doubt the entire family would have gone, but I know that at least the owner of the company and their spouse were present in DC for that day.
Okay, questions. Was it important for the owner and the spouse, who I'm assuming worked there, to be on premise for this business to operate? So in other words, if they just decided to call in sick, would the company be able to function for like a day or two on its own?
There's two answers to that. One answer from my perspective and another answer from their perspective. Their perspective, no, the company could not survive without them.
Obviously.
My perspective, it absolutely can and does.
Okay, that was question number one. Because my follow-up to question number one is, why do we need to know that? If you can't make it to work, you're just my boss. I don't need to know what the fuck you're doing. Maybe you have to get like a hemorrhoid removed. I don't care, right? Why do we need to know that? So number one, that's super ridiculous. And number two, it's a small family-owned business run. Whenever you hear small and family-owned, get to step in, because I don't feel like anything good ever comes out of that. Number two, did this ever come out to the employees, like what actually happened?
Yeah, so it was sort of a slow drip, but that is sort of, I guess, the overall impact of sharing this story as the first one is the impact that it had on the employees, but also on the company as a whole.
That's what I'm saying. So what happened when they started to find out? Like, yeah, tell us. I must know.
So the way, once employees started to find out, it became apparent that the owner of the company was not always looking out for the company or the employees' best interests. And so employees quickly became disengaged, and many departed. Within 90 days of January 6th, I ended my contract.
Did you end it voluntarily, or did they ask you to leave? No, you were like, I'm out of here. Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to be associated with this.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be any part of that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. And about 80% of the staff that I had hired, trained, helped to manage and facilitate and engage and help the business grow were gone in that same window as well. So it had a massive impact, not only on the individual employees who made sometimes the tough decision to leave at that point in what was still somewhat of an uncertain global pandemic.
Sure.
And in many cases without a job to go to. That's how bad it was for them.
Yeah.
That they would just up and leave. But also an impact to the company and the remaining employees, because the company now had to put extra financial resources into replacing so many positions so quickly.
That's
and a lot of that extra work,
take, though, right? Like that's like a really intense stand. You're like, I don't love what these people have done. I'm done.
Exactly.
But also, like, I feel like it just is indicative. So here's where my last question, and I think you were getting there on your own anyway, Bryan, but like, how fucking toxic was it that this was like just commonplace? Like, I'm sure there was already rumblings of, all this other nonsense before this one thing happened. Like, first of all, why did they hire you as a consultant? What did they give you a hard time in your consultancy? Like, what happened there? Like, I just, without you even answering the question, I can already kind of imagine what you're going to say, but go ahead, say it.
Yes. There were lots of red flags leading up to this.
Mhm.
This was obviously like a red explosion,
Yeah.
yeah, so to speak. Um,
Yeah.
and it really lit the fire under a lot of people to find something else and get out the door. And to be clear, I've kept in touch with some of the people who were there. Some of the people are of a rightward political persuasion, and even they were like, I'm out. I don't want to be a part of
Well,
this.
and I think that speaks to more like the duplicity on the duplicitous nature of what the owner said. It's like, I might not believe in whatever politics you believe in, but if you're respectful about it, fine. Like, to each their own. I don't care, right? But it's like the fact that you're going to say, oh, it's a family emergency, and then just go trot off and do something. Like, it's really like, it's icky. They lied to their entire company. So I think, yeah, I don't like that. It's not good.
Family emergency.
So, but wait, why did they hire you, Bryan? Like, what was the reason why they felt they needed a consultant?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Before we dive back into uncovering the complexities of toxic workplaces, we have an important request for you. If you find our discussions eye-opening and thought-provoking, consider subscribing to Let's Break Up Toxic Workplace Stories. Subscribing not only ensures you catch every episode, but also helps us reach a broader audience with our message of positivity and change. But that's not all. Leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform goes a long way in spreading awareness about the impact of toxic workplaces on individuals and the solutions we explore together.
To help with employee engagement, to develop some additional policies.
Okay.
They had an aggressive growth plan, and we achieved it. But a lot of it was buttoning some things up, which was tough for the ownership to handle sometimes, because I know both of you are aware, like that sort of new business startup mentality is, let's just do things. Let's just do it. And we'll deal with any repercussions later. Whereas from my perspective, it's let's think about what possible repercussions there are, put in safety measures to prohibit those, and then not have to deal with them, because it's always more expensive and more time consuming to deal with something after the fact than it is to prevent it. So that's sort of where I was coming in, but also helping to achieve some of those growth plans and do some strategic hiring instead of doing, one hire at a time. Let's hire a group. If we're hiring salespeople, let's hire a group of salespeople, train them all at once. Let them develop bonds and relationships together as they go through the training. Let's develop a real training for them, as opposed to some random person taking an hour out of their day to say, here's what you need to do, and then leaving them be. Like, it just buttoning up a lot of things and putting some structure and some process around it.
Were they resistant to any of your ideas?
Yes. In their defense, most business owners are, because it takes work, effort, time, and money. And a lot of business owners aren't willing to put that time and effort in.
Then why
but I tell you, when
you?
I do find a client that does understand what it takes, it's a match made in heaven, because they may not always agree with me. They may not always like what I have to say, but they understand why I'm saying it. They don't dislike me for saying something. They don't think that I'm just trying to up the billables or something like that. That it's trying to achieve their goals. The reason that they wanted to partner with me. Yeah, it is difficult sometimes. But that's also sort of my role. Is you've hired me to give you the best answer. It's up to you whether you implement that best answer.
Yeah. Bryan, I'm curious to know, what did you think when you studied law? Did you think this is where you would be?
Not a chance in hell. No.
What did you think? Like, where did you think your trajectory was going to take you?
I thought that I would be more of a more of a paper practice type lawyer. doing estate planning, especially here in Florida. There's plenty of work for that. Probate, guardianships, doing family law to some extent. That is sort of what I anticipated, what I thought, especially after law school, what I thought my trajectory was going to look like. I think I kind of stumbled into this, somewhat related to the writing that I do, because when I was working for a small law firm, this was years ago when law firm websites were becoming a thing. I started doing the writing for the website. One of the areas that the firm practiced in was employment law. I got to learn some more details about employment law because of the writing that I was doing for it. And then also took over the operations and HR for that law firm, and realized that I actually enjoyed doing these two things, the writing and operations HR stuff, more than actual practice of law. And that's sort of how that fork in the road happened for me.
Wow. Do you maintain your, like, I'm assuming it's similar to New Zealand, do you maintain like a practicing certificate for that?
I do not. No.
Okay.
So you're okay. Yeah. Okay. So what was number 2 on your crazy list?
On my crazy list. So number 2 was, so one of the things that I generally try and stay away from with clients and with discussions is politics and religion. Like sitting at dinner with in-laws or something. While those can be fun topics and topics that we should be discussing as a society, sometimes it makes for inappropriate discussions in the workplace, and that's why I try and steer companies away from that.
Agreed.
But as I look at my list, almost everything is political related. So
I feel like this is leading up to something.
I feel like this is a total setup. I feel like we're like, okay, what did these Muppets say?
I'm on the edge of my seat. Yes, so carry on.
Different company here. This is much more recent. This is in the days after the Dobbs decision was released from the U.S. Supreme Court overturning Roe. There was a company, this is a much larger company too, a couple hundred employees. One of those companies that has employees in multiple states and has to deal with the jurisdictional issues and all that compliance. They posted, as many companies did, they posted a message on their full company Slack channel, expressing concern and support for people who are affected by this Supreme Court ruling. And basically, they did a good job of not really taking any political stance, but saying, look, here are some options that are available based on our insurance, for counseling, for people that you can talk to. Here are some internal company groups that you may find supportive. That they did a great job of providing support when it was needed.
Love that.
But
they also,
where's the but?
They also said,
there's the biggest but here.
They also said,
so far they're doing a great job.
Yes. They also said that we are developing a company policy where we will reimburse up to a certain amount for employees who need to travel to a different state from where they reside to have some healthcare needs taken care of. They didn't say for abortion. They said for your healthcare. Again, great move, great policy. It was drafted well. It is good. What they did wrong was that they made this company announcement on the whole team, the whole company Slack channel, and didn't turn off comments. The first comment to that.
Wait. Do you have any comments memorized?
I feel like Bryan
I would be there with my popcorn
to his brain.
Just reading the comments, not participating, just eating my popcorn, reading the comments. Take it away, Bryan. What do you remember?
Oh my God.
So one of the comments, yes, not verbatim, I'm not quoting, this is a paraphrase based on my memory. A comment from someone who looks like me, a white male, said, if anybody,
his username was incel 1984. Yep, got it.
No, it's probably like Chad 19 or Rye Guy 1998, some bullshit like that. Okay, go ahead.
The response was the comment was basically, anybody who wants to talk about alternatives to abortion, I'm here for you. That was not well received by many people in the company. And a good portion of the company got together, sort of off on the side, made an appointment with the CEO, spoke with the CEO. The company decided to take no action, left that comment up, closed commenting for the rest of it. So shut off any rebuttals to that particular comment.
Mm-hmm.
Continued their policy, continued everything, but the damage was done. They did everything right up until they didn't. And the thing that they did wrong was more damage than them saying nothing on Dobbs Day than what they did. A lot of employees left. Like I said, this was a much larger company, a few hundred employees, but a lot of employees left. A lot of employees were visibly upset by this. And withdrew from their work, withdrew from the company from an engagement perspective. It had an impact, and not just on liberal women, but on people from all walks of life. It had a negative impact at the company, because so many people saw that as the company did so many things right, and they had an opportunity to do something else right, to either delete the comment or to respond to it and say, yeah, this isn't really appropriate.
Delete it? Why didn't they just delete it?
I'm sure that they're like PR person or marketing person, having been a marketing PR person. There's also that like fine line of, do we leave the comment up because then people are going to think we're censoring people's opinions? Like there's the censorship here.
Yeah, that was I think some of the justification for leaving the comment up. But my approach was, if you're going to turn the comments off after that comment is there and not allow any rebuttals to that, I understand not wanting to make it a place for debate, for a political debate on a company Slack channel. I get that. But if you leave that, then you're saying that's the last word. And that is what I think rubbed a lot of people the wrong
everything
way.
Like retroactively, just like had the statement and then been like, whoops, we didn't like, just say like, own up, like, whoops, we forgot to turn off comments. Like, this is our stance. That's it.
This
like,
is a non-negotiable,
your opinions to yourself. Not even saying that, just say, oh, whoops, we forgot, we forgot to turn off comments. Like, behind the screen, there are humans. People will forget to do shit. Like, it's like we forget companies are made up of individuals who are human and therefore going to make mistakes. So it's like, I feel like if you had just owned up and been like, we're deleting all the comments because we should have never had the comments on to begin with. Like, sorry if we offended anyone or something nice, better said than that. Do you think that would have been the better way to go?
I think so. And not to toot my own horn here, but before they made this announcement, I said we should, and I said this to many of my clients, even before the Dobbs decision came down, you need to have an announcements channel on Slack where only certain people can post, and there's no reaction to it and there's no commenting to it. After this debacle, then they made an announcements channel where only certain people could post. That was a mistake. Slack is great for making company announcements and making sure that everybody sees them. It's much better than email for that, because it's more instant, especially when things need to be made timely. But you have to do it right, and that this was not handled well.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like it. And then, like, I mean, do companies even have to get involved with anything remotely like that? Like, I guess if they're giving healthcare, they do, right? But like, sometimes I wonder, like, can you just not say anything? Like, how is that? Like, I don't know, because I'm not in HR. I've never been in a position where I have to make announcements of that, of anything of that important. So like for instance, like we're product development. Like, I would never dream, my company's product development, I would never dream to even make any announcement about that decision, because A, I'm not educated enough in the ins and outs of it, and B, like it has nothing to do with the services we provide. Is that ignorant of me?
No, companies don't have to take a stance on anything. They don't have to make an announcement about anything. They do need to make announcements if they're making changes to something, like for open enrollment for healthcare. You need to remind employees that it's open enrollment time. Here are the new plans, if they're new or if they're staying the same, and then direct them. Any questions you have about medical stuff, you need to talk to the insurance company or to the nurses that are provided for plan selections, not to internal employees.
I guess it's like when it's a dicey situation, like this was a dicey situation. Like, what would have been the downside of not saying anything?
So the downside of not saying anything, especially speaking, post 2020 world, the downside of not saying anything is it's also seen as a negative by a decent number of employees. It is, companies are employees today don't look at work and don't look at their employers as a 9-to-5 for 40 years. They look at it as some institution that at least shares some of my values and will stand up for some of the things that I believe in. I may not always agree with what the company does, always agree with what the company says, but on big issues, I want my employer to take a stand, and I want my employer to do what they think is right. Even if I may disagree with it, I want them to do something that they think is right and take a stand. Yeah, if I disagree with it, that may push me away to another company, but that's sort of the price of business today. I think that it is detrimental when on big issues like this, companies don't take a stand, even internally. Like for this company, for example, if they had just said nothing, they probably would have ended up with the same result. Of disengagement and employees leaving.
Yeah. I guess I'm just like, how does a company go about doing that when, like, how do you take a stance without getting it to be overly political or overly religious, right? Like, it's a really fine line. And I think the example you gave was so good though, because they didn't push either agenda, right? But I think it's so hard to get to that point. I don't really know what happened, but the place that Nicola and I met at, that decision happened. Nicola had already been gone, but apparently the owner went on to Instagram Live and said something. I don't know what was said, but she got such like backlash for it that I don't know what she said. Oh no, I think what it was is we had a mental health day the day after the decision. So the decision came on Friday, right? Like the Friday, I think it was. And then there was the weekend. And then that following Monday, we had a mental health day. And the company worded it like, we're so upset about what happened that we're giving all of our staff a mental health day. But that wasn't the reality. The reality was the mental health day had already been scheduled for months. So like, what did she do wrong there?
It trying to play something off as though it were in reaction to something to have this positive effect, when it was in reality something already on the books. Like that's another thing that employees want today is more transparency from their employer. And like,
everybody in the company knew it had already been planned. So then when you have them announcing, oh, well, we're so sad, we're giving we're giving all of our employees the day off, and most of them were women. What message does that send to your employee? And then I think it kind of got out that wasn't actually what happened. And also, like, why do you need, I don't know. It was just a fucking hot mess. But what does that do to your business when you do something so stupid like that?
Yeah, it has the same net negative effect on the workforce, because they see, for the transparency point, they see right through it. Employees see right through it, and it doesn't. There is a lot more. Right.
She straight up fucking lied to all of her audience at the sake of employees. And then she got upset when people called her out on it.
Yeah. And there is a lot of pressure on companies today to toe that line, like you said, and to make the right choice every time, all the time. And that is tough. But there are some instances where the right thing is clear and companies still either struggle with it and trip over doing the right thing, or they just do the wrong thing entirely, like in your example. Yes, it would be wonderful if you gave us an extra mental health day based on this. Not, let's tag it on and make it a long weekend, give people time to just relax and go spend some time with family and friends, process everything. Not like, hey, we're going to turn this already scheduled mental health day into a Dobbs mental health day. That's not the right approach. I definitely agree with you. But I think that either approach that they had taken, because they tried to piggyback on something that was already happening. Been
like, this was already
it
scheduled.
Was a negative.
We're gonna address this decision, when we're all back and whatever. I just thought it was hilarious because she was like crying and upset about how it backfired, and I'm like, you dumb fuck, of course it did. Like,
was she actually?
Right.
But I'm sorry, that's kind of, look, I didn't actually know much about the story until like 2 seconds ago. And I'm sorry, like PR wise, either don't fucking comment at all or make a fucking proper comment. Don't play off that bullshit. Like,
well, and I think that's what people were getting upset about. And then there was another portion of people that were like, what is giving everyone a mental health day off helping the cause? Right? Like, shouldn't you be out there protesting, or shouldn't you be out there? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a protester by nature. I am cool with anyone who wants to, but the idea of standing outside in the hot sun in Florida doesn't strike me as anything that I would like to do. But I don't know. I guess the bottom, and we're like way off track, but the bottom line here is she fucking lied. And that goes to show the type of person she is and what type of company she's running.
Right.
Anyway.
Because that's the mindset that employees have. Then if you're so blatantly lying about this, what else are you lying about? What else are you doing behind the scenes? What else is shady is going on?
A lot of shit, Bryan, a lot. But this isn't about us.
It's not about us. Okay. It's about you, Bryan. It's about you.
Yeah. So what was the third thing that happened? Or are we still on number 2? Because that was a pretty big one. So can you go back into the company Slack and still see that comment?
It still exists. I'm not
probably like in the archives or on the cloud or something.
Yeah, it definitely still exists. Yeah, I think it's a great example of just how to do almost everything right, but then trip over something pretty easy to do right at the end.
So ridiculous. All right, what's number 3? What do you got for us?
So the third thing we have, the third big one, is a little bit more operational, a little less political. So this is, there's, a lot of companies, one of the things that a lot of companies come to me for is to help button up processes, to put some structure in place. Employees many times crave structure, or at least need some guardrails around what each role is supposed to do, what each department is supposed to do. Hiring processes, training, that's one of the biggest things today, is that people don't get trained. They're just expected to come on the job and figure it out. And so hiring and onboarding is definitely a big focus, especially again in the last 3 years with remote. It has put in some additional hurdles to do it effectively. But there are definitely ways to do it. And the best way is to start thinking about it. Like, as a company, how can we make this process positive for our employees and give them what they need to be successful in the job? Obviously, you've invested enough in the hiring process and paying this person. Let's give them every chance at success. And so that starts with hiring and onboarding. And there is some confidentiality that is related to hiring and onboarding. a lot of notes are taken during the interview process, during the hiring process. Those are notes that are good, especially to reflect back on if in 30 days, 90 days, a year, you're having some issues with an employee. You can look back and say, okay, did we spot some red flags early and just didn't know they were red flags? But those notes should be retained, and they should be kept confidential. The employee who is hired should not be able to find those notes in Google Drive or in a Slack message. So that is it's not a breach of any,
so somebody found
of any law.
So they're right, but it's just like that's like business 101. So somebody found like the company bad mouthing them.
So an employee found out found a Slack thread of the people that they interviewed with, commenting about their interview just after it occurred, just moments after it occurred, and could see the thread about it. They could also see documents that were attached.
Okay.
What did the comment?
Yeah, what were the comments? Were they like were they like appropriate comments, or were they like she's dumb or whatever? Like what kind of comments were they?
It was nothing that I think would necessarily be out of line, but they were sort of borderline comments. There were some comments like, the candidate was meh, didn't wow me, did an okay job but didn't wow me, stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like in an interview, that's like when you find looking for fit, I don't dislike
like
that.
I would have been more like, like if they were like, did you see the knockers on her or something like that, like I would have been all over that. But
this is why you need a consultant.
I know, but no, but I think, but I get what you're saying, Bryan. Like it's while it's not inappropriate, they don't need to see that or read that or know that it exists. They don't need to know that. It's like the records room, Nicola.
It is the.
You have to watch The Consultant, Bryan. It's so creepy. It's so good. You'll love it.
I definitely will.
Okay, so you'll get my reference to the records room now. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So those comments themselves, yes, they're not any threatening or legally actionable comments. But an employee shouldn't be able to see those comments about themselves, especially in their first month on the job. They also shouldn't be able to see the attached documents in that thread where they are where there are additional notes about not only their candidacy but also other candidates for the same role. And to find out that they weren't the company's first choice, that there was somebody else who was a first choice over them. Of course, we all know that at some point we've probably been hired as the second, third, fourth, seventh choice. But to know that is different than assuming that or having that thought running in the back of your head. And that has a negative impact, again, on the employee's level of engagement. Because if they perceive the company not all in with them, not being their number one, we're all in with you choice, then they are not going to provide the same in return.
So did this person leave though? Like, did he or she find the comment and then leave, or what happened there?
This person has not left. This person is still with the company, still and still trying to navigate through some of this, but is really trying to give it their best, and put those comments aside, and go with the positive comments they have received while on the job, as opposed to looking at some of the past comments when these now colleagues only knew the candidate for 30 minutes at the time. Now they've gotten to know this candidate, and know that this person can provide solid and exemplary work. So now that this person is trying to focus more on the present as opposed to some of the past. But I think it would have been easy for the company to avoid this this potential disengagement scenario by simply having a process in place for having private Slack channels, for having password protected folders on Google Drive or Outlook or whatever cloud service they want to keep their resumes and applicant notes in. It's not hard to do that. It's a simple, easy step to take that could avoid all of this headache and heartache for an employee that really just wants to do a good job. Plus, it sets the stage for potentially actionable items to be discovered. Because if the process and policies are not in place to protect some of this information, what other information might be discoverable by employees that would actually be confidential information, like medical records or write-ups and further employment records, salary information that is confidential in certain areas. So
I had that issue around salary, like confidential salary information, because I had used a group email. Well, it wasn't originally a group email account. It was my email account, but as we got bigger, it ended up having to become a group email account, and I had to move archived information out of that account into somewhere safe. But before I had the chance to, the people that had access to the account had already gone looking for the information, the salary information.
Yeah, and that is something that I get a lot from employees who come to me. They come to me with a policy, a screenshot or something from a policy from their company saying you're not allowed to discuss salary information with one another. And companies can't do that. You can't restrict employees from discussing their salaries. What companies can't do is disclose an employee's salary to everyone else. So you can't just simply say, hey, Sally makes $34,000, John makes $36,000 in a company meeting, unless those employees give their specific consent to do that.
Oh my God, like Taylor, when her boss announced how much she was earning in the company meeting.
I know. That was ridiculous.
Yeah. So that's illegal, just to clarify, that's illegal.
Yeah, you can't prevent. The National Labor Relations Board has actually taken some action against companies who have these policies in place, who are attempting to prevent employees from discussing their salaries with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't prevent that. But some employees don't want their salary known. Some people still see that as personal, confidential information, and so it's up to the individual employee whether that information is released to the rest of the company. Obviously, people on the finance team, people doing payroll, they're going to know that, but they should also be subject to some confidentiality. They're not allowed to disclose someone else's salary. They can talk about their own. They can't talk about other people's. And that kind of, I think, that kind of is a good segue into sort of the one of the overarching ultimate points that I wanted to make today, which is that employees need to know their rights. Obviously, companies come to me and ask me for help, building policies and putting structure in place and dealing with some tough situations, operationally or legally, compliance. But employees come to me too, and so many of them don't know their rights. And companies take advantage of that, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Companies take advantage of that. In the US, employee rights are a lot like the ADA. There's no enforcement agency for it. Yeah, there's the EEOC, but you have to make a complaint first, which means you have to know that your rights have been violated before you even go to the EEOC.
And I feel like because you have so many states and so many laws and so many different things, it would be really difficult for average Joe blogs to navigate your rights, like just navigate your basic rights.
It's extremely difficult because not only are some things rights across the board, are some things that you think should be rights but aren't rights across the board. some of those things may then actually be rights in certain states, but not in others. And yeah, it's this whole, it is an incredibly complex, it's a complex area. And it's tough to navigate for both companies and employees, because employees may feel that their rights are being violated when in reality they aren't. And that's just the way US employment law works, that it very heavily favors businesses, or employees' rights are being violated, but they don't know that they're being violated.
So what happens?
Well, I'm gonna hop in before you finish your question there, because I'm curious.
Yeah, go ahead.
What are some of like the top employee rights we should be hyper aware of? Like, what are some of the ones where you're like, fuck this shit? These are the ones you need to know. Like, always look at this.
Mm-hmm.
From an employee focus, it's overtime and at an accurate pay. So a lot of companies will try and avoid overtime pay by classifying somebody as a manager or on salary, and thinking just because they pay them a salary that they're automatically exempt from overtime. That's not the case. And employees oftentimes don't know any better, so they just accept it. And again, using the nuance of different state laws here, overtime is different in California, for example, than it is in Texas. In Texas, it's federal. It's 40, anything over 40 hours is time and a half in a single work week. In California, it's anything over 8 hours a day, plus 40 hours in a work week. Plus, there's some nuance to this, but there's also if you're working more than 12 hours, then it's double time. And so like, those are things that a lot of employees just don't know that they're entitled to. But that also relatedly goes along with misclassification of employees, which is something that companies need to be aware of. So if you classify your employee as exempt, but they're not, you could be, if that employee learns that their rights are being violated and files a complaint, and the EEOC finds that the company has violated the employee's rights by not paying them overtime and misclassifying them as an exempt employee when they're actually non-exempt, then that company is subject to not only fines and penalties for that misclassification, but also to paying that employee back overtime pay, and in some cases paying the back taxes for both the company and the employee for the additional pay. Mm-hmm. So it can become extremely costly for companies to do to engage in misclassification. And that also happens between contractors and employees. A lot of companies, especially today, again, going into the post 2020 world, a huge part of the US workforce today is fully freelance, fully 1099 contractors.
Yeah.
And companies oftentimes take advantage of that and say, we want to partner with somebody who's a contractor so that we don't have to pay them overtime. We don't have to cover their benefits. We don't have to pay the payroll taxes. We're just going to pay them straight 1099. But if a company determines when an employee works, how they work, and what they do when they're on the clock, they're an employee.
They're not a contractor anymore. We've got the same rule in New Zealand.
Right. And so that again, the company is engaging in misclassification, knowingly or unknowingly, and could be subject to massive fines, penalties, and disengagement from the rest of the workforce as they learn that the company is doing something shady, even if the company didn't know themselves. A lot of companies don't even know that misclassification is a thing.
Okay, so we've got misclassification. We've got. I feel like with some of these though, again, like where do people go to find out what their rights are? Because I feel like with some of these, we're like, yeah, okay, cool. Make sure you know about overtime. Make sure you know about, employee classification, yada, yada, yada. But again, like, it's so tricky to navigate if you're just average Joe blogs and you're coming in and, signing your contract and off you go. Like, you're not looking out for these big kind of blaringly red flags, right? So where can people kind of go to kind of work out what their rights actually are? Like, what's Joe Blogs? He's a plumber down in Orlando at Disney. Where's he going to get his fucking rights? Like, where is he going?
So in Florida, he isn't going to find much help. Where
Oh,
he's
wow,
going
that's
to find,
so helpful.
yeah, where he's going to find help is in blue states. Many of the blue states, California, Colorado, Washington, for example, have great workforce rights web pages, FAQs, information on their state labor department websites. Yes, it still takes a little hunting sometimes to find exactly what you're looking for. It's not always straightforward, front and center, but a lot of states do put that information on their web pages so that employees can have a better idea of what their rights are. But honestly, your best bet is to just start Googling. If you think you have some sort of violation, start Googling, and ideally you'll end up with a hit in one of those states that will give you some detailed information. Hopefully you live in one of those states, because then their contact information is there and you can easily get in touch with the labor department in that state. If you're not, then yeah, you need to do a little bit of digging. And sometimes people have to go to employment lawyers for assistance. Some employment lawyers do some pro bono stuff, especially in more red states, because they know that employees, workers just don't have the resources and just need 5 minutes to answer a question like, is there a cause of action here? Is there some right that's being violated? I feel like it should be. I feel like some right is being violated.
Aren't most employees at will in the United States? Like, you don't really need a reason to fire them?
Correct. But if you have an employee who thinks their rights have been violated, and here we can use an example that I didn't even have on my list, but this is a great segue. Say there's an employee who's been on the job for 8 months and they have done not a great job. They have been given some training and they just haven't met the expectations. And now the owner of the company says, we need to terminate this person and find a replacement. So the person is terminated, as you said, at will, no reason given, just termination. The employee is 4 months pregnant. So now we have a potential discrimination clause on our hands because the individual was pregnant. They go to an employment lawyer, and the employment lawyer then writes a letter to the company saying, you have wrongfully terminated, you violated my client's rights. Even if there was justification, this is where the system sometimes manages to screw everybody. Even if there is justification for that termination, let's assume that there is in this example, the company is still most likely going to pay the terminated employee a settlement just to make the whole thing go away, because it's going to be cheaper than litigating and defending it. And so that's where you have employees who, in this case, knew their rights, but also were able to in some ways take advantage of the situation because of the employer terminating them while they were pregnant, even though they knew the employer had a just cause for doing so. So let's assume now that there was no just cause for doing so. Now the employee is just out of the blue terminated, and they're 4 months pregnant. Now they think, of course, I've been terminated because I just told my employer a month ago that I was pregnant, and now I'm going to need to go out on leave in a few months. They just want me off the books. They don't want to have to deal with that hassle. So it creates complexities and challenging situations for everyone involved, partly because of the at-will employment. Because even if no reason is given, if someone alleges wrongful termination, then the burden shifts back to the company to provide a legitimate reason for the termination, a non-discriminatory reason.
So I was told that I was being let go because I went against the company's core values. And the core values, more or less summed up, were like, the company comes before you, like lead with kindness, like things that really don't amount to much. It's not, instead of like being like, don't steal, don't lie, like, which of course I'm not going to do. Is there any recourse there?
I mean, so yes, in America, there's always recourse. Whether it's worth it to go down that path is an entirely different question.
I mean, that's the thing that you always have to kind of like do the checks and balances for. So I just was like really shocked that they wouldn't even really give me a reason. And does a company have to give you a reason, or can they just say it's not working out?
Yeah, companies often say it's not working out, or this position is no longer available, and you're like, but I hold the position right now. No, companies do not have to give a reason, unless a cause of action occurs where a lawyer gets involved, or a government agency gets involved to say this could potentially be a wrongful termination. We need you to justify this with a legitimate business reason.
So
violating,
because like I still don't understand why I got fired. Oh, I mean, I technically resigned, but I also don't know why I then got fired. So
yeah, and that's a shitty position, because there's so many workers in America who have that happen frequently. They just don't know. And I think, again, part of that is a symptom of at will, because companies are trying to cover their own ass and just not giving any reason, in the hopes that they won't end up with a wrongful termination lawsuit, as opposed to giving some reason and then having it be more clear that there's a wrongful termination because they stumbled over the reason, or they gave some discriminatory reason for it. So many companies just do nothing and then go silent on the employee, and so they never know. And then so that doesn't help the employee, even if the reason was legitimate, that there was some true issue with the employment relationship. The employee doesn't know, and then they go on to another job and they experience the same thing all over again. And it's just, I see it more of as a symptom.
It just, and I know for Nicola, it felt really fucked up. And I think it feels really fucked up for a lot of people. And America is not pro employee. It's not. It's pro capitalist. I mean, that's at least how I feel. What do you think?
I agree. It's
like, fuck the employee. We could just figure it out from, yeah. So
yeah, employees are the replaceable robots. And
so then how do you advocate for yourself? Because I felt like I got so angry and so upset, and and I know Nicola got really depressed, but like, as people who get fired and continue, this is not the first time, it's not the last time. How can you advocate for yourself? Like, the only thing I could think of doing was I forced them to write me a termination letter. Like, I was like, I don't know why I feel like I need this. I should just have it. Outlining like when my like the dates of my employment, what my severance was going to be, all of that. Like, I don't know why I felt like I needed that, but I made them do it. And I did get it, but like, it was only a consultancy for me. So I shouldn't have even gotten severance, but they're so dumb they gave it to me because they don't know their ass from their elbow. But I really feel like I could have, like, I really feel like I didn't know how to advocate for myself. And that made me really upset.
And again, I think that's a symptom of the system, that employees just don't know their rights. And even if they do, they don't know where to turn. And unfortunately, one of the best ways to turn is also one of the most prohibitive, and that's to an employment lawyer. And employment lawyers usually are not cheap. And
it's also really, like, the minute you're getting in the big guns, like, an employment lawyer is considered a big gun, and then you come in and all guns fucking blazing, and then your employer's going to turn around and be like, anyway.
Right. And if you live in a state like California or Washington or Colorado, New York, that have some good labor departments that have some level of advocacy for employees. They are swamped, overworked, overburdened. So it won't be as quick as spending money out of your own pocket to go to an employment lawyer, but you can always file a claim with your state's labor department and have them, they will investigate. It may not be quick. It may not be the answer that you want. It may not be as in-depth as you think it needs to be, but they will take action on it. But the outcome is, the outcome is often just disappointing. It's just never, it's never what you think is warranted or is necessary. And again, to your point, Gina, that's kind of a symptom of not only the at-will employment system, but also capitalism, that the business is valued over the worker.
So what can you do, like going into taking a new job? You know, obviously, if you're going to go work for like a huge conglomerate, you're not going to have too much ability to amend a contract, right? Like an employment contract. But what can you do to kind of advocate for yourself when you do decide to take a job with a new company, assuming you can amend the contract? Like, what should I have done differently? Or what should anyone do differently? Because, you know, I just, at the end of the day, I just felt very like, and I'm sure that I'm not unique in this, but I felt like, how's this bumblefuck of a company that's barely surviving, like firing someone who's actually experienced? Like, what kind of Twilight world am I in right now? Like, you know, I mean, the bottom line isn't, Nicola knew it, is I was costing them too much money, because I asked for less than what I'm worth, but yeah.
But that is the problem that so many workers face, is that to answer your question, what can you do?
Yeah.
You can remember that almost everything is negotiable. But if you negotiate a higher salary, additional benefits, a severance, or whatever, you're also going to cost the company more money. So you may be one of the first to go if you've negotiated a higher salary and additional benefits. So,
but like, can you? So I guess my real nitty gritty question is, if you're coming into like a company that isn't huge, that their contract isn't ironclad, can you add anything, or ask to add like anything that says like, if they're planning to fire you? I'm just riffing. I don't know really what I'm trying to get at. Like, they need to give you certain amount of days, or like, can you do anything in that vein? I think you understand where I'm going with this, to protect yourself.
Yes, you can do that. You can negotiate in your offer letter, which, as long as both parties have signed it, a company representative and the new employee, it is essentially a contract. It's not an employment contract that the way in the way that many other countries use employment contracts, but it's as close in most cases as we get in the US. You can sort of negotiate out of the at-will system by doing exactly what you just said. You can ask for, you have to be prepared for the company to say, no, we're going on to another candidate, but you can try and negotiate and ask for a 90-day notice for termination, or in lieu of notice, 90 days worth of severance, 30 days for any of that. You can negotiate that. And sometimes if a company really wants you, or they really need your skill set, they will play ball with negotiation. You can't. The one thing I always tell workers who come to me is that you never get what you don't ask for. And I know that's a cliche, but if you think you want something, if you think that you're entitled to even just another $1,000 a year, ask for it. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. You're guaranteed not to get it.
Yeah.
But yes, to answer for your direct question, you can sort of negotiate in a way out of at will.
So like the way that they had it was like, you had a 30-day review, a 60-day review, and a 90-day review, and then I guess a 6 months. Now, I think a lot of us go into that thinking, well, of course it's going to be good because I know I'm a good worker, right? But you're not really taking into account like company culture, clashing personalities, truly understanding how the business works, what the morality of the business is. Like, are you working with liars and cheaters, which we happen to be working with liars and cheaters? So a lot of that you don't know, but I think having walked through that, now I would say, like, I think that would be my number one thing that I would do to safeguard myself. That if they're have you ever heard of the EOS system?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just question, what do you think about it? Just generally.
I'm curious. Well,
I'm really curious to hear this.
I think that there's a lot written about and discussed about ways to make companies better, make them more profitable, make them more engaging for employees, how to actually engage those employees and make those employees more productive. Every situation is unique, but there are often similarities. And the one thing I can say with certainty is that if you want to forget any type of system or methodology, if you want to be a successful company with productive, efficient, and engaged employees, pay them. Yeah. Pay them what they're worth. Pay them more than what they're worth. Pay them with benefits. Pay them with actual salary and time off. That is the way to get engagement from employees, which then turns into productive employees, which turns into revenue for the business. And that study after study after study, both pre-2020 and post-2020, shows that is the formula.
Okay.
You pay employees.
I think you're thinking of something else. The EOS system, the entrepreneurial operating system. That you have not heard of. Yeah, you were thinking of stock options. So never mind. I
got so confused there for a second.
Yeah, no, because I was like, I think he's talking about employee stock options, and I think that could potentially be a great thing if you're like an IBM or something. But for like a small startup,
I once got stock options in a business.
It's exactly.
And it was fun. I got like $200 out of it when I left. Sweet.
Yeah, but I mean, if you were getting stock options plus all the other things that Bryan's mentioning, like an actual salary, like not subpar salary, you're not being worked to death, then yeah, absolutely. No, the EOS system is a whole different bag of worms.
Yeah.
And see, here's the thing, to go back to sort of you can include this, not include this, just for the three of us having this discussion. Mm-hmm. This is something I always love to tell people about, because I do a lot of writing for also in HR space, and I do some writing on comparisons between other countries' employment laws versus the US. And one of the things that regularly fascinates me is that we are one of the only countries on earth that hasn't figured out so many systems. We haven't figured out universal health care. We haven't figured out maternity leave. We haven't figured out paternity leave. We haven't figured out how to give a social system for employees so that they can weather the storm between jobs, or medical bills. Like I the other day I was looking at stuff for Norway, was it? I think it was Norway. God.
They have the bomb everything.
418 days of paid maternity leave.
It's insanity. I know. And they have like universal health care. They have like unlimited sick. It's unreal.
Hold on. Can we... Are we all moving to Norway? Is this what we're saying?
Yeah. We're gonna all do.
Oh my God, Gina, are we getting married and moving to Norway?
Yes, yes. I think.
But even
we'll have a visa.
The three of us will be a throuple, and we'll caravan to Norway.
Surely, between one of us, we can get a visa, and then the other one could be the wife.
Why not?
One would hope.
If I can catfish some Norwegian guy, and I'll get in. And
Oh,
then
you know what?
I'll
You would
invite
do
you both.
that and then invite me as your sister wife. I was just watching Sister Wives
Exactly.
again.
And Bryan, you could be my brother.
Perfect. I love it. I love it.
Hold on,
You
I'm
know,
Googling visas in Norway. Hold on.
we
No,
we are one of.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. We are one of, I think it's 29 countries on Earth that does not have guaranteed paternity leave. We are one of 6 or 7 that does not guarantee maternity leave. Like, if what are there, 210 countries, if 205 of them have figured out, including places like, not to, again, include, not include, what, up to you, but like, not to throw certain countries under the bus, but countries like Saudi Arabia that have paid family leave.
Mm-hmm.
How can we not do that?
America is so far. Like, so the more that we do this podcast and the more that we have people coming in from all over the world, the more I realize, and I'm not like anti-American at all. I'm not, I feel like I'm grateful that I was born here. I'm a citizen because yes, we do have a lot of opportunities, but there are some things that we do that are really fucked up. And namely the ones that you are discussing right now. It's like America is not built to support small businesses. America is not built to try to lift up impoverished, areas or demographics. We're just like slapping band-aids on things. And it's, the more I talk to people from everywhere, the more I'm like, what is going on right now? Like, yeah, let's go to Norway. Like, fuck that. They have like,
yeah. And think about this. Like, I read yesterday or earlier over the weekend or something. I read a piece in the Times about the coming I forget what they called it, but the coming financial catastrophe that is boomers retiring and going into nursing homes. Like, we do not have. There are so many people in that age group that are just going to be screwed, because they don't have the financial resources to go into nursing homes, and states and the federal government are not putting money
doing
into
anything.
that.
Yeah, they're not doing anything
to build the facilities and to train the nursing staff that's required to support all of those people that are going to be going into those places.
Like, that's like, at this point in my mom and dad's life, like, I'm 43, they already had like 2 homes, a shit ton of money in the bank. I'm like, I make decent money, but I'm like barely scraping by. I'm a single mom. I'm in one income household. And I'm like, I'm lucky if I'm going to have enough to retire on,
Right.
And I think that's like a lot of our generation. We're all in that same boat. And also because what companies give 401ks anymore? Very few and far between. What companies give pensions? None. Unless you're like a first responder of some kind. Like, it's just, but then you want to go in and feel like the company's like part of your family, but they really don't give a shit about you.
That's exactly right. The company does not care about you. You are disposable to a company.
Yes. Yes.
And that is the system that we live in. And I think that yes, we can have a debate, and I'm all for it, about what we should do to correct the wrongs of this current system. But at least if you know what the system is, then that is empowering. You can empower yourself by knowing the rules as they currently exist. Yes, should many of those rules be changed, and should we have some social safety nets? Should we have some of these other programs in place? Absolutely. But right now we don't. And so we can advocate for those changes. We can, as you said earlier, protest for those changes. We can take action for those changes. But until any of that happens, knowing the system that you're in and understanding your rights and abilities within that system is the best way to empower yourself as a worker.
Yeah. Well, Bryan, you're so fucking smart and eloquent, and no wonder why you're a writer.
Bryan, we love you.
And
we love your stories.
Thank you.
Yes.
Where can we find you, Bryan? Like, where's your...
Tell everyone where we can find you if we want to annoy you about wrongful termination, which is almost never a wrongful termination. I'm still trying to figure out a way to make my termination wrongful from our... Can I get something No. But yes, tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, I'm not big on social media. I do have LinkedIn.
I love that actually.
But I'm not, I don't really do much on social media. The best place to find me is my website, bryanjdriscoll.com. That's Bryan, Bryan. And there's a contact form there. You can also just email me, bryan@bryanjdriscoll.com. And I am always open to having a chat with somebody about what's going on, whether they're an employee or a business. The idea that I have, the sort of the mantra that I have when I'm specifically working with companies is what benefits the employees. Because
so
as I said earlier,
employee versus employer.
Yeah, because if I still want to help the company, because by helping the company, it helps the employees. And when you have an engaged workforce, you have a productive and profitable workforce, and that benefits everybody.
Sure. Well, I love that, and I wish more people were like you. And let's try to all get on the Bryan bandwagon and help employees with. And if the Bryan bandwagon doesn't work, we'll just caravan to Norway. Thoughts, feelings?
I mean, I hate cold weather, but I don't know. I might be willing to make some trade-offs.
I mean, universal health care and like unlimited paternity leave. Not that I don't know if you guys want kids or anything, but I would brave the cold for that. I mean, I'm a native New Yorker.
It's attractive.
Yeah. I like that. It is attractive. Well, we'll be in touch when we figure out the logistics on that. We might also be dead by that time, but we'll be in touch.
Maybe.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was so awesome having you on, and you're so smart and insightful. And I hope you keep listening.
Thank you both.
And tell your friends. And even though you're not on IG, put it out in the universe that you're going to be here so people can listen to you.
Absolutely. And I thank you both for first of all, doing something like this. When I first found your pod, it was fascinating to listen to. And I think I mentioned on our first call together, but the one that you did with Taylor was just so resonaning for me that that's when I was like, I gotta
congrats on having a baby, Bryan. BT dub. Like you can't even write like congratulations. Like I can't.
Right. Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
All right. Well, go enjoy the rest of your day, and we will be in touch. And if you need anything from us, you know where to find us.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you both.
And thank you, Bryan. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. Speak soon.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. If you enjoyed our candid conversations and insights, don't forget to hit that like button, follow us on social media, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.